My name is Еймъс Macdonald. I was born in Colorado, but I consider myself from Virginia, considering I've spent most of my childhood here, and I don't really remember much of Colorado. So I'm from Virginia.
I see. I see. Could you tell us a little bit about your experiences that we were talking about earlier?
Well, I noticed that when I got burned when I was about 17 years old, pretty severely. This whole part of my arm was seized up and the skin was hanging off, and I was hospitalized for about 18 days. And even with the morphine that I was constantly being given every hour, I was still in a great deal of pain, and I wasn't eating, which was the main thing, because all those hard painkillers was just turning my stomach upside down. And one of the really cool nurses in the hospital was noticing that I wasn't eating and noticing that I was losing a lot of weight in that time, and he came to me and suggested that I smoke cannabis. And he said, if you have any friends that can get you some and bring it in here, I can show you where to go and smoke it, or whatever way you can take it. There was a bathroom, as a matter of fact, on the 5th floor of the hospital that had a air suction so great that you could smoke in there and it would vent it out in seconds. So I guess that's where he would go, and he told me to go there. And so I'd carry my little IV thing with me and go down there, and I'd smoke and come back up and eat like nobody's business. And my whole attitude, my anxieties from that situation were dealt with, and they noticed that I stopped actually wanting to receive morphine, which they were surprised, because most people were like more and more and more and more and more. And due to that, I managed to make what would have been much more miserable be much more dealable, or able to deal with it. And that was just the beginning of me noticing how cannabis helped me in many different things. I mean, obviously the pain thing is what most people tend to use it for or talk about. But one of the things that I noticed was a mental health issue that I've been dealing with since I was about around that time, more or less about 19, I guess. I come from a family that suffered from severe depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, and so on. And I grew up watching my mother being very upset and very depressed and suicidal, and she made many attempts on trying to kill herself in front of me. And it pretty much in turn gave me an anxiety attack, to where it could come and go. I could just be at a party hanging out and having a good time and suddenly have to leave because I would have a complete and total panic attack. I'd turn white, start breathing too hard. So I started going to doctors, because this is killing me. I can't function in the world like this. And they first said, okay, well, we're going to put you on, I think the first drug I was on was called a mipramine, which is a dinosaur of psychotropic or whatever drugs to treat this kind of thing. And it made me feel like my skin was crawling. I mean, it was I took it for one day, got off of that. I came back, they gave me another one, which was Paxil, and that stuff made me feel even worse. But I did stay on that for 2 weeks to try to give it what they said, stay on it, you got to be on it for a certain amount of time and for it to start working. And I was having severe anxiety on that. So then, in addition to Paxil, they gave me a Klonopin, which I've had many terrible experiences with that. Granted, yes, I could take Klonopin and it would help calm me down, but if I didn't have it, I mean, my anxiety would be 3 times worse. The withdrawal from it, the side effects from not having it, and not to mention the side effects from actually being on it were traumatic. And so I ended up getting off of that, and this is over years of time of me bouncing back and forth from convincing myself that there's a doctor out there that can help me. Western medicine's got to be able to help me. And then to people going, hey man, it's not going to work, try cannabis. And eventually I realized that if my brain was going nuts and I started to feel like I was going to have a panic attack, I could smoke pot and I would feel completely calm, completely normal. And eat, go to work even, work perfectly fine. I'm a carpenter. And I've done some of my best, most creative work. And a lot of people say, man, if I smoke and go to work, man, I can't even function. Well, I just feel normal. Whereas some people that don't need it, perhaps, and they just use it for recreational fun, it's a different story. Whether they don't go out because they can't socialize. For me, it just makes me normal. And if it wasn't for that, I really don't even want to think about where I could have gone from that, with the Western medicine end of it, a mental hospital for all I know. So,
have you ever talked to your doctor, any of your doctors, about your cannabis use?
Well, they've always asked me, do you use marijuana, blah, blah, blah. And I always say, yes, I smoke pot, and they're like, well, if it doesn't seem to be causing any problems, don't worry about it, most of them say, but they don't ever like promote it, It's if it helps and you gotta do it, do it. But a lot of times they're like, here, I'm gonna give you this, first before you do that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of paying a lot more money. A lot of the times, a lot of these new drugs are just ridiculous in prices, and you got to go to a doctor and pay them first just to get the prescription so you can get this drug, and it didn't really work out for me. And
are you taking any prescription drugs right now?
I haven't taken any prescription medications in the last 3 years. I did break down and try to stop smoking and stop drinking and stop doing anything, and I wanted to just see what it was like, see if it was true that this was actually benefiting me, or if I was just trying to fool myself into thinking that, hey, this is medicine, and when actually I'm just addicted to pot or something. Well, I was able to stop smoking, no problem, and the only side effect I had was a little bit lack of appetite for the first few days. But after that, I didn't go through severe, withdrawal where I'm sitting there thinking about robbing a bank so I could go buy pot. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. It was just that my head started swimming and going, like this noise in my head just started getting louder and louder without it. And it's the same noise I had before I ever smoked it. So I convinced myself there, it's not because I'm without it that I'm experiencing this. This is what I dealt with and why I ended up trying it to begin with. It's because I had this. When I say by noise, it's an anxiety type thing. It's a depression. It's a lack of ambition to do anything because you're feeling so nervous about being in public and talking to people all the time. And I'd literally be contemplating suicide in my mind at these times. Not just then when I'm talking about now, but way in the past. And I have no desire to actually kill myself. But when you're feeling anxiety so intensely, killing yourself, it's inviting. It is. It's like, wow, if I could just not feel this anymore, no matter what it takes to do that, then you'll do it. And so instead, I would always run to a friend's house and be like, hey, do you have any cannabis? And they would say, sure, here you go. And I'd take a couple of tokes and suddenly wonder why I ever even thought that before. My brain would click right back to normal. And I would just be like, literally bring tears in my eyes because I was thinking straight at the time after smoking and going, man, I can't believe I actually was plotting how I was going to do it. What method of committing suicide was actually being plotted in my head hours earlier. Now I'm totally fine, looking forward to going to work in the morning, And that to me is a no-brainer, and not to mention it's a plant and that it's been used for, so many years that if there was anything that's going to come up that's bad about it, it would have come up already. And then they're giving me drugs that just came out. They have no idea what's going to happen to me. And they say, here, this one may cause you to feel more suicidal for the first couple of weeks that you try it, but you got to get through that. I'll tell the doctor right in the face, if I'm even a fragment more suicidal than I am right now, then you're going to hear about me in the paper, And those were times where I just couldn't get my hands on my medication because of the, the fact that it's illegal. It's makes it incredibly difficult. And the paranoia I used to grow myself, and the paranoia there that you get from having it growing and wondering if you're going to get in trouble for just growing this simple plant defeats the whole purpose. So I'd have it growing, but then I'd always be kind of nervous, so I stopped doing that because it just didn't work. It's, knowing that I can have it without having to be criminalized by it was a good thing. In Hawaii, where I just came from, it's pretty lenient out there. It's not decriminalized 100%, but if they catch you with it, they're just like, don't do that again, it'll slap on the hand. So I didn't really feel nervous walking around with my medication and taking my medication, on the beach or something like that. Whereas here, I'm super paranoid because the government here is much more different, much more strict on it. So.
No, actually, I think you did a great job. I think you answered all the questions I was going to ask.
Oh yeah.